Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new revenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, Shitty Neighbors Get What's Coming. The neighbor next door is in a hole. We used to get along till he threatened my dad. It all started when he stole my sign for my home business that I had a right to put up in my lawn according to Hoa. I didn't know it was him at first, but my dad saw it in their garage a few days later. He went over to ask him for it back instead of just sneaking into his garage to get it back, what I would do. A few seconds later I see my dad, a tiny, 64 years old man with a heart condition, running for his life with this buff 30 years old 6'1" guy chasing him, telling him to get out of his property. I was livid. I get in front of my dad protectively as his friend runs after him and tackles him into the ground. Apparently the guy was drunk, like enough to want to beat up a 64 years old man because he knocked on his door in the middle of the day. I ended up rushing my dad into the house and called the police. They were useless, didn't even do anything, but I was still livid and wanted my revenge. So for the last few months I have been inconveniencing him as much as I can, just to upset him. This is a few of the things I have done. Usually we wait till morning or night to run our sprinklers. We were kind enough to water their grass as well as our own on our shared side, and also mow the grass on our shared side. I have started to run the sprinklers every time he has his garage open so his stuff gets wet. I also make sure that I mow the lawn afterwards so that way all the excess grass gets stuck to his truck or on his side of the pavement. Our address is very similar, usually you switch 2 numbers and that's our address. There have been times where I would get his mail and immediately put it in the outgoing box, now I don't. I keep them until weeks later and put them in the outgoing mail box, and sometimes I just forget. This resulted in him being late on a few payments. I know because I also received a final bill for a bill I knew I forgot to give them. We have a strict rule about leaving a car in front of the street for more than 2 days. So after 2 days I call Hoa and he gets a warning which later escalates to a ticket which only increases. This resulted in him being ticketed a few times. I know because I saw the sign posted on his car. We also have strict noise pollution laws in our subdivision, which they constantly break every weekend. Usually I let it slide because hey, it's Saturday, but not anymore. I complain every time and usually the cops show up and shut it down, or they tell them to quiet down. They also tend to park right in front of my house blocking us in, which I didn't care about because usually I had nothing to do on Saturdays, but not anymore. Now if someone is blocking us in and I know it's one of their friends, I call the non-emergency line, and since my neighbor is a cop, they send him over to get them to move their cars. If it's their car I call the tow company, and they once had to pay to get their car unhinged. They never did that again. Man, they were really upset when I called the police on them, but even the police said I should just let them handle it since the last time we tried to handle it ourselves we were chased out and threatened. The next one is titled, She Used a Psychological Trick to Guilt Trip Him. Sometimes the best revenge is no revenge at all. A friend of mine told me this story years ago. This couple is married, the lady has a corporate job and is always traveling. The husband is nice and supportive of his wife but has a young mistress on the side he sees when wifey is away. Wifey suspects nothing. One day, she has to travel outside the country to sort out a crisis. She's expected back on a Monday. The husband uses this opportunity to bring his mistress home. Unfortunately for both of them, wifey manages to sort out the crisis early and gets back home a day earlier, on a Sunday. She walks into the house to find a strange woman wearing her bathrobe and washing the dishes. Hubby is on the couch watching the TV with a towel wrapped around his waist. Doesn't take a genius to figure out what's been happening. She greets her husband warmly, even hugs him, greets the mistress warmly and rebukes her husband for not introducing them. Hubby is tongue-tied in shock. She then goes to the bedroom, unpacks her suitcase and comes back to the lounge to find the mistress has quickly dressed up and disappeared. Hubby is waiting for the worst but wifey behaves like nothing has happened. She chats merrily about her trip, asks him how his week has been, even makes dinner. After dinner, they go to bed like nothing has happened. This continues for 2 straight days. Wife behaves like nothing happened, isn't moody or angry, is in fact very chirpy and cheerful. On the 3rd day, the husband broke down and confessed to everything. The torture of silence was too much to bear. He couldn't even sleep because he thought she was plotting some nefarious scheme against him. He confesses to everything and promises never to do it again, and he never does. Wife eventually forgives him and they live happily ever after. Sometimes psychological warfare really does work. The next one is titled, He Was Left with Rough Finances. Husband and wife married when they were in their late teens. He is smart and a looker, she is brilliant. They move from London to Hong Kong due to his job, but soon she finds one that is satisfying. The workload is heavy and both travel constantly. But they are both soon on $500,000 plus packages. He starts playing around and the number of girlfriends mount. I was always surprised that he could not cut anyone off. She notes this and he is reformed several times. After 10 or 12 years he meets and falls hard for another professional. She is smart and a looker but not brilliant. She is not willing to be a mere mistress. The wife finds out and meets with his girlfriend. They agree that they will give him a choice, wife or girlfriend. He goes to Thailand and into the arms of yet another lady for consolation. I know because I had to hide behind a pillar so I did not bump into them to decide. He informs his wife through his secretary he wants a divorce. She, who has been in charge of the family finances, buys a massive house in London using all their savings plus a mortgage. She packs up the home in Hong Kong and ships everything, and I mean everything, to London. This includes his much prized carpet collection. She takes the children out of boarding school in the UK and re-registers them in a school close to the new home. On the day that she leaves, just 1 week after that call, yes, all that in 1 week, she cancels all the credit cards, rendering his cards useless as they were on joint account, and writes to the Hong Kong tax authorities telling them that she is leaving. This triggers a tax bill for all unpaid taxes, 3 years. In those days, the husband is responsible for his wife's taxable income. He returns to an empty house, empty bank account. He had to borrow money from me, sigh, no usable credit card and a massive tax bill. When he sued to try to get his carpet collect and some money back, he discovered that all he could get was an interest in the mansion of a house in London. This is because it was the family home and thus could not be sold. As for the carpet collection, it had been auctioned off to pay down the mortgage. 24 years have passed. To be fair to him, he is still married to the girlfriend. He has stopped playing around or become very much more discreet. He has still not gotten any money as she still lives in that home with a new husband. Revenge is best served cold? The next one is titled, Superglue Fixes Everything. I never in a million years thought I would be sharing this story. My friend was always a very in-your-face sort. She developed incredibly early, so men noticed her when she was barely a teenager. She got really good at telling folks where to go and exactly how to get there if they dared to step out of their lane. I always admired her tenacity. She was a force to be reckoned with even as a kid. Fast forward a few years, and she's married with a baby on the way. I was at her house when a woman called her to tell her that she had been sleeping with her husband for the past several weeks. All of the late nights at work suddenly made a whole lot more sense. The thing that surprised me, and probably should have warned me something terrible was soon to happen, was that she calmly asked me to leave so she could finish making dinner and getting ready for her husband. It boggled my brain that she would be willing to do nice things for him when she just found out he had been cheating on her. A couple of months later their divorce became final, and I figured that they had simply had a nice dinner and worked through the details of their separation. I couldn't believe how calm and collected my fierce lioness of a friend had been in such a stressful situation. Until I found out the truth about what happened that night. She really did prepare him a nice dinner, his favorite. Then she put on a frilly nightie with perfect hair and makeup. She led him to the bedroom and started to give him a sensual massage. Finally, she made it to his manhood, and that's when her true nature came to life. Of course, he was totally turned on, but instead of sexy time, she superglued his junk to his leg. Word on the street is that he still has a scar. The next one is titled, Petty Revenge on New Neighbor. This happened to my girlfriend and I in June 2016 when we moved into our new house, basement apartment. The move went flawlessly as we didn't have much furniture to haul and our friends helped us out. Since it took no time to move into our new place, we decided to grab some beer and order pizza for all of us. Keep in mind, this is on the same day of the move and we didn't get the chance to greet our new neighbors as they were not home all day. We live in my girlfriend's cousin's basement and he didn't mind that his driveway was full of my friend's vehicles. Some needed to park on the road because the driveway was full. Cars were parked in front of our house, so people who showed up late parked randomly on the street. All in all, it was a great night and we kept it pretty civil, making minimal noise for surround residents. The next day was a different story though, as my girlfriend came running in the house crying. I asked her what was wrong and she said the neighbor to the right of us approached her and scolded her. She said she was an inch away yelling in her face about people parking in front of her house. Apparently she did not want people parking in front of her house because it is her property. I can smell the bullcrap from here. I felt horrible, as my girlfriend is not the aggressive type and would run away instead of retaliating. I gave her a hug and told her that everything would be okay. I was going to take care of this. Instead of firing shots back at my miserable neighbor, I decided to have my friends over again for the next 3 nights. Instructions were clear: even if my driveway was empty, I want you to park in front of my neighbor's house. Seeing as my friends and I smoke, we go outside and see my neighbor peering out her window staring at us and the vehicles parked in front of her house. I told my friends to keep eye contact, smile, and wave at her while she was looking out the window. We did this every night, and as soon as she saw us she closed the blinds. After this occurrence, my neighbor never bothered us again about parking in front of her house, which we rarely do now. I never got a chance to go over to my neighbor's house to say hello, but I think I made my point. I understand that we cannot park in your driveway, front lawn, but the road is city property and anyone can park there. Suck it. The next one is titled, "He Made Her Think Her Car Got Stolen." Caught in the act of cheating. It wasn't me or my spouse cheating. It was me helping my neighbor Vin get revenge on his cheating wife Kat. Kat had told Vin that she was going to the gym then out for coffee with her gym friends. Vin had suspicions she was cheating, so he waited a while after she left, then he drove to the gym to see if she was there. Sure enough, her car wasn't there. He knew where to find her. She would be at Fred's house. Fred was a friend of a friend. Sure enough, her car is at Fred's house. Vin was heartbroken and upset. He pulled away. Called me and told me to get dressed as he needs a ride somewhere. He leaves his car, gets in mine, and we drive to Fred's. He gets out of my car, and takes Kat's car. Oh my god. I was dying. He drove home. He parked her car in the driveway and waited for the call. That was amazing revenge, thinking on his part. 4 hours later, Kat calls him crying that her car was stolen from the gym parking lot. He very calmly replies, "That's strange. I'm looking out the window, and your car is in the driveway. And that is a mighty long workout. Shouldn't you be having coffee with your friends now?" He hung up. Busted. Fred dropped her at the corner and she cried for forgiveness. Vin told her to get out. She left for about a couple weeks and begged him to take her back. He did. They moved out of state and I lost touch. The next one is titled, "I recommended her a job to get her out of town." Sneaky move. I gave my ex-wife a job I was offered and she didn't find out until after she had accepted. Yeah, my first marriage was short-lived, but it was brutal. I devote an entire chapter to it in my upcoming book, but couldn't resist answering this question. When I got divorced, the company was just taking off, but I was still working my job as the director of the multimedia lab at Virginia Tech. I was offered this great job at James Madison University, JMU, where my oldest son now goes. I was flattered by the job offer, but the company was really taking off and the JMU job was a lateral move at best, and I saw it as a step backward with fewer prospects business-wise due to the more remote location, so I passed on the job offer. In my letter to JMU, I graciously declined their offer but recommended my ex-wife for the job. She had much less experience and really wasn't qualified for the job, but I made the recommendation anyway. We were already separated and our divorce was pending. A couple of weeks later I ran into her on campus. We worked not too far from each other. She runs up to me and says, "You will never believe what just happened. I got a call out of the blue from JMU and got offered this amazing new job. They already talked to my boss and he recommended me, so they called and offered me the job. I didn't even have to interview. I accepted and start in 2 weeks." I could hardly contain my laughter. The look on her face turned from joy to bewilderment to outright anger. She said, "Did you have anything to do with this?" Now busting out laughing, I said, "Of course I did. I want your sorry butt out of town for good, and if that means getting you a better job somewhere else, then fine. Enjoy the new job in the middle of nowhere." Now I'm laughing uncontrollably. The look on her face was priceless. I actually look back on it and feel bad. To her credit, she applied herself and made the best of the opportunity and moved on to a better job at George Mason University, GMU, and now has a top C-level job at a major private college in upstate NY. She managed to leverage a decent career, so I doubt she is still all that mad at me. Then again, I'm sure the fact that she was never going to launch a major career on her own must still upset her. In the end, it all worked out, but that one moment of revenge was so sweet. The next one is titled, "He Had to Walk 3 Miles." I have told my story on how I got revenge with my first husband after I caught him cheating for the second time, but I don't guess it hurts to tell it again. It wasn't savage, but it made me feel a little bit better. This was before everyone had cell phones and people were still relying on payphones. I was working as a waitress on holiday Thursday night. Holiday Thursdays, I could pull $300 or more in tips. 2 hours into my shift, and right when things started to get busy, I get a call from the babysitter saying that my husband had not come to pick up the kids. I asked if he had called and she said no. I called his work and he had left at the regular time. I knew his manager and I asked if he left with someone, and she told me yes, that he had left with a woman he worked with to give her a ride home. I had already had an inkling he was having an affair with her. Anyway, long story short, I left work and picked up the kids. When he got home, he gave me his lame excuse and later admitted he was having an affair. The first thing I did was get in his car and leave. He hated when I drove his car, which is why I took his car. I told him I had to think. His car's gas gauge didn't work, so we had figured out that his car on a full tank could go 300 miles. Once the mileage got close to 300, we had to put gas in. I noticed it was close to 300 and took a chance and drove around for a while. Then I flipped the mileage to 0. Drove a couple more miles to make it look like I had filled the gas tank, and then drove for a while more before I came back home. Knowing the next morning he would be leaving early for work, and his work at the time was about 45 miles away. When I got home, I packed myself up and my daughter and went to bed. In the morning he went off to work. I got in my car, drove my stepsons to school, gave them big hugs and told them I would see them soon. Then I went to live with my mum until something else could get worked out. My ex got about 15 miles before his car ran out of gas. It was raining and he was on a rural road that wasn't very busy. He had to walk about 3 miles in the rain until he found a payphone. He had someone from work pick him up. I called later to let him know he would have to leave work early regardless of if his car was on the side of the road or not, because he had to pick his sons up, and that was that. The last one is titled, "April Fool's Jerk." I was seeing a guy who was in a relationship, but he downplayed it and said it wasn't serious. She was a single mum who would visit every few weeks, according to him. She wasn't as exciting as I was. He didn't love her, I was told, and he'd be breaking up with her. So he was not caught cheating, exactly, but I figured she was out of the picture. She wasn't, as it turned out. We had quite a passionate thing going on, and he proposed with, "Let's get married and try." It wasn't good enough for me. By the time it happened, things went south already and I wasn't happy in the relationship. It was clear to me it was over, but both of us were not ready for the final blow. My children were the culprit, because it occurred to me for some time that he wouldn't be a good father to them. He wasn't too affectionate with them and treated them like strangers when we spent time together. He already had children from a previous marriage, and wasn't too active in their lives, either. On April 1st, I texted him I packed my suitcases and was ready to move in with my 2 daughters. He wasn't too enthusiastic, I thought, but told me to come to his office and pick up a key to his house. That's when I said, April Fools, and wrote to him that we had to stop seeing each other. I told him exactly what I thought of our relationship, and how I could no longer be dishonest about what it was, ducking. I know it was cruel, but I was acting this way because I couldn't stand his lies about his intentions and knew he still continued to see the other woman. Sometimes when I visited, I found food that she cooked for him. I thought about how she must have loved him and cared for him, and all this time he's been telling me she meant little to him. I saw how selfish he was, and how he chose a shiny new thing in me over her devotion. They've been seeing each other for 6 years. I saw her once at a party. She looked like a sweet person. He brought her as his companion. We kept our relationship secret from mutual friends. I knew he would treat me the same, and that his love would fizz out as soon as someone better came along. Among other things that didn't work between us, this was a major one. Did I want to marry this man? The answer was no. Yes, he was an exciting lover, but I could not build a marriage on just being physical, alone. It took a lot of courage to break it off. I was infatuated, big time. He was a charmer and a romantic, and we had a lot in common, same background, education, social circle, we really got each other. But he had a major flaw, he loved women, plural. I don't think he was able to be loyal to just one. Anyhow, that was my April Fool's joke. He got very angry. The crap has hit the fan. He accused me of playing with his emotions and other stuff, some of which was true enough. He stayed angry for a long time. I really hurt his pride. In time, we became friendly again. The drama blew over. He had hoped I would come back and still be his mistress for a short while. But then a lot of time has passed, and we both moved on. His spin on it is that we both chickened out. Whatever. It's not how I saw it. He needed to come up with his version to heal his ego. He is still with that other lady, but they don't live together. She still visits him and cooks for him, and takes care of him when he's sick. Thanks for listening.